What's up, guys? We are back with another Battletoads review from PremiumDNA Toys. We're taking a look at the Rat Bones figure today. So this is one of, the NPC nameless enemies in the game. So we've got him here in the same kind of packaging, but of course, like I've said, all the packaging is like different size for this line because everything is so different. So you've got the, like the emblem for the bad guys, you've got the Battletoads logo, and this is a slipcover. And then you pop that off, and then you've got your figure there in the window with the Battletoads logo down there on the bottom. One spine gives you cross-sell for the wave, the other spine gives you some video game sprite artwork for this guy, and then the back showcases a product shot as well as the accessories this big dude comes with. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Rat Bones figure in Battletoads, and this is a weird, surprising figure for sure. Surprising in the sense that it can move in ways that I would have never expected. It has some limitations for sure, but there are some crazy instances of just insane range on this figure. And it is also a chunky, big skeleton. This is not a small figure. He is definitely larger than the Battletoads, which I really like. Everything, and I said this in the Rash video, everything gets crazier after the Toads. It's ridiculous. So let's see what this guy can do, see how he moves around. There's a lot of ball hinges on this figure. That's overwhelmingly how this figure is put together, is ball hinges, and you can probably understand why, because it's a skeleton and it's a fully exposed skeleton. So the neck, to start with, the neck is on a ball hinge, so you can use it to twist and go up and down. So it does, it can go over the rib cage already, and then the head is on a giant ball. So the head itself is on a ball peg, and it can go side to side. It's got some tightness to it, but I feel like that's needed here. And then you've also got an articulated jaw. So there's a lot of good stuff going on right there. The arms go out at the shoulders. They rotate. There isn't a bicep swivel on this guy, but you have a swiveling elbow. So you can rotate this ball peg right here. So this can swivel. This is the area where I'd say I wouldn't even say, he's definitely hindered, is the elbow. It really only does this. It can't do anything, can't even come close to 90, which is definitely a negative. A lot of the articulation on this figure does outweigh this particular thing, but that's still not the greatest. We've got hinges, and you've got rotation at the wrist. It's another ball hinge, of course. And then we've got the torso, and the torso is another series of ball hinges that utilize the spine as like a column, basically. So you've got a ball hinge right here at the bottom of the diaphragm, so he can go backwards like this, just at that joint. But then you've got another one at the top of the pelvis, so he goes backwards like this. Like, you can do some crazy stuff with this guy. And then he goes forward this far, which is just insane, I think, in many ways. Now, if you want to twist him a little bit, you can even get him going even further based on how you've got that ball hinge oriented. So I'm not always the biggest fan of ball hinges being used over and over and over again on a figure, but in this case, I think it's probably the best way they could have done this. This makes him really, really mobile, except for these elbows. Legs go out all the way. They, of course, swivel all the way forward. It's another system with ball hinges. We've got the same thing down at the knees, and it's another ball hinge. It's still 90, which is good. And you've got twist there also a little bit. You've also got shimmy up top here at this, what would be the thigh. And then you've got your ankles down here, which again are more ball hinges. And then you've got some rocker. Rocker isn't the greatest because he's got these he's got really wide feet compared to really narrow, ankles. And then you've got another ball hinge at the tail, so swivels in and out. And then, of course, move that and you can orient it another way. And then you've got another segment down here, which also has another one that can swivel and can hinge. So, yeah, he has a lot of ball hinges, but he has really, really good range. You are going to have to sort of play around with it to make sure he's stable because there's not a whole lot connecting the bottom of the figure to the top of the figure. So that is going to be maybe a balancing spot. But outside of those elbows, I think this thing has some absolutely ridiculous range. Now, to complement some pretty crazy articulation, this thing also does look really, really good. Again, it is a big skeleton, and we're going to be doing size comparisons with other stuff. But he's bigger than the Toads, and I think that it's just a cool looking figure. Like, the way he's put together really helps to sell the idea of this being a skeleton. The smaller ball hinge joints really do help to keep things kind of compact a little bit. And this thing does have some very mammalian, very humanoid in many ways sculpting and just proportions with where the bones are actually placed. Obviously, there's extra stuff here. We've got like spikes and stuff sticking out of the back and on the side of the thighs. And then, of course, he does have a tail. But this is still like a very familiar looking kind of skeleton. I think this thing potentially has some appeal outside of just this line. Like you could have this big thing being just a big monstrous skeleton on your shelf. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a rat. Those rat features aren't overly pronounced when it comes to, like the face or anything like that, looking like some sort of little critter. But I'm really happy with the way he looks. Paint is, I don't want to say minimal on this thing because it is fully painted. It's bones. So there is a lot of shading and dry brushing, but you're not going to see like a ton of super detailed or, very specific hits of paint. I don't think it's a lot of trying to accentuate this sculpt. So there's some wash and some dry brushing to help bring out what's already there at the base level of the sculpt, which is to say, it's pretty solid looking. I'm really happy with the way this thing looks. The sculpt is really nice. There's a lot of pitting and fragmentation on some of these bones, so they look worn and they look a little beaten and battered a little bit, like an actual bone is in real life. So there is some wear and tear on this thing, and then that wash makes it look a little dirty and nasty, and of course kind of accentuate the sculpt as well. But then we've also got this head sculpt, which is the clear thing that stands out, is this thing not being, some sort of a humanoid outside of the fact that it has a tail. But you've got this sort of, little critter type of skull, rat type of thing here with the sort of the nasty teeth in there. You've got the two sets of teeth, like the big chompers up front. You've got these big eyebrow ridges. So there's a lot of accentuated sculpt on the head to make it look a little bit ridiculous, and it's also a pretty big noggin as well. But then you've got these like really bright orange pupils in there that are just sort of piercing. They stand out because they kind of bulge out of those sockets. So there is a little bit of there's a little bit of a depth to the pupils themselves. They aren't just painted on the skull. They're actually a raised piece there. And then, like I said, this mouth does move, which I think is really cool because then you get to see all of those teeth and all of the sort of gnashing, gnarly teeth he's got in there, and more of that pitted cragginess to the head, which is brought out by all of that wash. So this thing is just cool. It's a really good monster type of skeleton. Even if you're not interested in the Battletoads thing or a ratty type of skeleton, this is just like a big monster skeleton that you could put with Legions or like with Storm Collectible stuff with their skeletons, and maybe beef up and differentiate your skeleton collection because this guy is so very familiar, but really different at the same time. Now for some size comparisons, let's start with, we've got a Battletoad and we've got another like 7-inch style figure. So we've got our skeleton in the middle, Faker from Masterverse on the left, and we've got Rash from the same wave of Battletoads. And this is a good indicator of just how small, or short, I'm going to say short, the Battletoads are compared to the other stuff in this line, because this is a big skeleton. This thing's like 8 inches tall. He's really, really big. It's not like a big, thick, beefy figure, but he's got a lot of height, so it makes up for it in some ways. Let's take this guy aside, and let's do a Mythic Legion. So there is Keltis. There's another skeleton for you. Let's take Rash aside. Let's do a Figuarts. There is Goku. Take Keltis aside, and let's do a Marvel Legends Baff. Here is the Controller. Let's do an Ultimates figure from Super 7. Here is Lion-O. And then let's do Mezco. Let's do Mezco Conan, like usual. And there he is. And I think that works pretty well because I wouldn't mind seeing Conan going up against this guy. So, like I said, a really, really tall figure. This is a big, lanky, tall skeleton that in many ways can probably be put alongside just about anything because it's not necessarily human. And like right now, that looks pretty good. Now, as far as accessories goes, this is probably the one area where I would say there's some negatives about this figure in general because of the fact that it just doesn't really come with anything. And that's not a fault of the figure. It's just how the character of the NPC was in the game. Because this is a Battle Maniacs character thing, if I remember correctly, and they only had shields, and they came in different colors, so you get one of each. So outside of the fact that it only has a shield, it actually has shields. It comes with 3. So you get a green one, you get a brown one, and you get a blue one. And they don't hold it all that well. The grip, there's really no grip to the hand, and it just sort of sits in the hand. Now, if you get it positioned correctly, it'll sit there just fine. But it was a little cumbersome to make it actually hold this thing correctly. And the arm not being able to articulate like super, super far up definitely didn't help. But at the same time, I find myself not really caring because I don't know that I want to display him like this anyway. I feel like rat skeleton is probably enough for me. But at the same time, there's nothing too crazy when it comes to accessories here. This is like, again, kind of the one area that's not necessarily as good as the rest of the figure in terms of articulation and design being really good, but accessories are just sort of okay. So yeah, overall, I really like this guy. It has some crazy articulation to start with. That's a very surprising aspect of this figure for me. I really didn't expect it to be able to move like this. Not everything is perfect. The knees don't go above 90. The arms don't go above 90. The arms don't even get to 90. But the rest of it, everything else is really well done. The neck, the torso, the waist, all of it moves so well to help this thing have a little bit more life and be really dynamic if you want it to be. But it also looks really cool, and it's a different kind of skeleton. It's very humanoid, but it's also this big hulking thing with spikes coming out of it, with this critter head sculpt, with a tail. The sculpt on the bones is really good. It's got a lot of pitting and fragmentation to it, like actual bones do. And then it has a ton of paint. It's not, intricate little detail, but it still has a lot of paint to bring it out. This isn't just molded plastic. This guy has a ton of wash and dry brushing to bring out all of that underlying really good sculpt. And it has not a lot of accessories, but it's got some. It has what this thing comes with. Maybe not the most exciting aspect of this figure, but it does have a few accessories if you want to give it that shield. But overall, I think it's just a cool figure. It moves well, it looks cool, and it's something familiar but also kind of different at the same time because it's a big monster skeleton. So that's going to do it for this look at the PremiumDNA Battletoads Wave 1 Rat Bones. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.